Do the promo.
Hello, folks.
Hi, everybody.
Our topic for tonight is, have extremists taken over your local school board? And here we are. So, hello.
Hi, Joe. I'm running. I'm always like a day late and a dollar short, only not really. I'm like 15 minutes late and like 3 cents short all the time, and it's so annoying. Anyway.
Okay, well,
Hi.
you were not 3 cents short here.
I feel like it. Please forgive me. Um,
Nothing to forgive.
what happened today, Joe? Let's take the theme that's going to the what do I want to say? The key objective objective uh, objectives that we want to pull from this topic of discussion tonight. One of them is corruption. Okay, dark money, which has everything to do with dumping incumbents, right? But let's also be very cognizant of politics that is involved here and the dynamics of the kind of politics that is incendiary gaslighting, gaslighting in the sense that it is just absolute, it's crazy making, right? Like it is so preposterous, the things that are being done, that it makes you think that like, oh my gosh, the world is crazy. Okay, that's on purpose. And let's just hold that, because those are the things we're going to talk about, as and also tie that into the movement of, I don't even know what we want to call ourselves, because progressive is like a bad word anymore because it's been used so much on, by the libs.
Yes,
But
its meaning is highly diluted.
but let's just go back to the initial, like, Bernie Kratz. Let's just go there for a minute, because that
Sure.
pretty much not emboldens, but when I say that, you're going back to 2015, and I think that people understand what that was about. Okay, the people, us, getting together for the right reasons, right? Public purpose, of the people, by the people, for the people. Enough is enough. Corruption, never lose your sense of outrage. All of that, right?
Right. And having policies that, if passed, would have benefited the people.
Exactly. And having a platform, even, right? I mean, because if you don't win an election or in a primary, but you have a good enough battle, then you do things like sit down in good faith. I mean, look at all the things that came out of that, right? You got, now Bree does a show called Bad Faith because nobody was acting in good faith, right? That's where that all came from. But you're the opposition, okay? And that's how you have to think about it. Not the opposition in the sense of you want to be obstructionist, but opposition in the sense of you're at the table and they need your votes. So there's got to be a give and a take here, right?
Yeah,
That's
so they're going to give you something because they need your vote.
correct. Where I think the progressives that we have in Congress right now have gone wrong,
Yes, I know.
okay, is that, and it's not really a gone wrong, Joe. It's a there's a learning curve here, and it's steep. Okay, you get a handful of people that we send there that, it was total progressive grassroots campaign type stuff. Send them there. They've got the best intentions in the world, but they're young. They're a minority. A lot of them women. All of them women, pretty much. And they get beat up by the power structure, right? We've all watched it. We've all grown from this. We've all learned, right? But what else happened to them? They get uh, this progressive caucus that Bernie started that has a bunch of centrists sitting in it, okay? And then they go and on any given Sunday or any given Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or any other day of the week, Nancy comes in and pulls her strings, right? And they get railroaded.
Yes, they get
And
real.
they got railroaded over and over and over again. And to the point where they were actually chastised on the floor of the House for certain things that were said, right? They get labeled as anti-Semitic because they're against an apartheid state. Okay, right? I mean, we all know how maddening some of this has been. All of it has been. But what I think the Progressive Caucus is bad at is knowing how to play politics while still being true to their base, to their policies, and to their words. Okay? Because the problem is that the rest of the game show that's up on Capitol Hill, when they play politics, they're superfluous platitudes, news cycle garbage. Okay? That doesn't mean that the progressives and the progressive caucus can't start doing things like throwing their base some red meat. Okay? And what that means is taking a stand without having to do a 25-minute podcast or 30-minute podcast to explain what your strategy is. Because if you can't get it down into a soundbite and an action, you've lost everybody. Okay? It's a marketing thing. Politics is marketing. It's marketing yourself. It's marketing your message. It's marketing your policies. It, right? And you can do it in good faith. You can. Doesn't mean that you don't have to have some teeth. Okay? Bernie told Joe Manchin, although it didn't really make the news cycle because, Bernie rarely ever gets any real press. He went right up and told Joe Manchin, I'll shut the government down before I'll let this bill pass. What happened? Didn't pass.
Right. So this was something I was waiting for a long time to see because Bernie himself has not been willing to say no.
Yes. Not up until now.
Not up until now. I was extremely happy to find him willing to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so maybe our squad progressives now will learn that from him. Okay? Because to me, what caused their performance to be so bad was not simply their youth, okay, and inexperience, but it was their unwillingness, to say no and to
Well,
say,
okay.
if I don't get mine from my constituents, then you don't get yours.
Well, okay. Hold on. Hold on. Because this is the problem with that. They were held hostage up there. They were. Okay? Go back. Go back. And we're not talking just this little 2 year stint of Joseph Biden being in the White House. Let's go back. Let's go back almost 6 years when they first got in there. Okay.
Well, it was in 2018 when the squad got in. In other words, they were elected in 2019. So their tenure started in 2019.
4 years ago. But they ran another cycle, right?
Yeah.
And okay, so they've been around. We've learned about them. We've campaigned with them. Blah 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 blah. All right, but it's different now, Joe. It's different now. The whole I'm calling on the whole progressive caucus. They don't get to separate out. Okay, because what we've got right now, first of all, uh, Britain's Britain's financial markets crashed. Okay, and it's the same type of a situation that we had here in 2008 with the mortgage crash. It just fell off a cliff, and then their stocks crashed, right? And there's a ripple effect to all of it. Our whole situation here right now is that we levied a bunch of taxes on the corporations, and all those taxes had to be paid in September, and we're sucking a lot of liquidity out of the markets because corporations have got to pay their taxes, right? However, there's a hell of a lot more going on here. Markets are very psychological. People panic, right? Because they don't understand a lot of this. Markets always dip when it's tax time. At the end of the year, people take their gains and their losses so that when they go to file their taxes, they've managed all of that. That is good financial management of your portfolio and your assets as a person, as an entity. But what you don't hear on MSNBC is the business cycle that is a part of those markets. Okay. But what else is a part of those markets are things like when your like when Boris Johnson goes over to the Ukraine and delivers the message that there will be no peace agreement reached. You're going to fight to the last Ukrainian. Now, if you missed that, guys, go back and look it up. There's articles all about it. I know that you're not going to get this on the TV, and you're not going to hear it, unless you're really looking at that foreign policy sector. You're not going to hear that stuff. But that's a fact, okay? But we knew that Boris Johnson had talked to Zelensky and said, we're going to fight to the last Ukrainian. That's what we're going to do. What we didn't know until this week was that there was actually an agreement that was ready to be signed to end the conflict back in April. That didn't help Europe, okay, or not
Yes.
Europe, Britain. There's another psychological piece of the puzzle that didn't help Britain, and this is hitting on Tories. It's hitting on the whole political spectrum over there, right? Every single political demographic over there has had some major revelation this week that has to do with corruption, that has to do with finding out that your government isn't being honest with you. Okay. Another thing that happened this week, and I think it dovetailed into last week. No, it was this week. There's something called the labor file. Al Jazeera Investigates there's a 3-part series on it, and then there's a 45-minute introduction to the series that was done as like a preface to the whole thing. You can look it up. Al Jazeera Investigations. They're on YouTube. They're all over the place. Just you can look it up. Three-part series. It is undeniable that the Labor Party was absolutely what went on in the Labor Party. You heard, they were calling Jeremy Corbyn an anti-Semite. And the anti-Semitism thing is what made it in that little thread, made it into the media and spilled over. And some of you picked up on that if you follow Corbyn, and if you don't, you didn't pick up on it at all. But they did the same thing to Bernie Sanders with that little
Yeah,
narrative.
they did the same thing to Bernie Sanders, and they've been doing the same thing to Ilhan Omar
And
and
Rashida Tlaib. Yep.
Peter Tlaib and the Squad people. Okay, in general,
Mm-hmm.
you can't
Mm-hmm.
say anything bad about the apartheid policies of Israel because if they do, they're labeled okay as anti-Semites.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Okay.
and because people don't inform themselves enough and
To
understand
know any better.
that they don't understand that there's a distinction between being opposed to apartheid and being opposed to Jews. There's a
Right.
big distinction there.
Correct. Correct. So, what else happened in the last 2 months that's like really telling? Like Nancy Pelosi, Mama Bear, the girl boss, goes over to Taiwan. Big international like foobar. Have you seen her anywhere? Do you know why you don't see her anywhere? Because everybody's like, whoa, like you flopped on that one. Whether it was her doing it by herself, whether everybody encouraged her, or whether she was, doesn't matter. It was a disaster.
And that's going to give her a lot of angst because, of course, she doesn't want to retire. She
Well,
does
I don't.
come back
Oh,
and be the leader of the Democrats in 2023.
but here's my point, Joe. Her her approval numbers are in the toilet.
I know they've been in the toilet for a long time, very long
Well,
time.
they are like all the way out of the house, through the sewer pipe, into the main, and the sewage is being treated in the treatment plant. That's how bad it is.
How much are they now? Are they down to 6% yet?
Oh, they're not even telling you.
They're not
That's
even
how
telling
bad
you
it
how
is.
low they are.
Okay. You know what else they're not? You know what else? You don't see. When was the last time you saw her at a microphone? She's nowhere right
It
now.
has been a few weeks. I guess I saw something I didn't bother to watch on YouTube yesterday, but uh, there was something sort of passing me by on the screen.
Okay. So what happened yesterday that we found out about? And it has to do with the bills that were going to be passed about not being able to trade stocks.
Yes,
Nancy,
yes, yes.
Nancy made a deal, supposedly with Trump. Now I don't know if that's true, but supposedly there was some deal struck that they are allowed to create trust. And once you create a trust, that's nobody's damn business. That's why they do it. Okay,
Yeah,
it's a trust. Nobody
there's no
nobody gets to
transparency.
know what's going on in your trust. It is nobody's business, right? So they're just going to create like, a safe haven to wheel and deal and make all this kind of money, and it's in their trust and it's nobody's business. Okay.
Right.
All right. So here's what I'm getting to. The leadership is weak right now.
Yes, they are
They're as
vulnerable.
weak,
They're vulnerable.
and you know what? The people know it. The people know it.
Yes,
This
they do.
is no secret. They don't even want to come out with the truth on any of this stuff that's going on because, oh, good God, we don't really want to show. We don't want anything to go mainstream about the fact that like there was a peace agreement on the table, and as NATO, we decided, we're not going to settle this. We're not. This is not coming to a settlement through diplomatic means.
Right. So we
Okay.
sent
Why?
Boris
Why?
over there. We sent Boris over there to say very loudly,
Yes.
no, we're not going to
Yes.
continue to support you if you conclude a peace agreement. Uh,
Exactly.
uh,
Okay.
and
Now
by
that
the way, the
came.
peace agreement was brokered actually by Turkey and Erdogan.
yeah, but I mean, I'm trying to keep this like up here because that could be. I mean, this we're going through like what would be a course, a college course, in my opinion. In a very, I want to try and do this in a very short period of time, so we're not going into the weeds because I know that not everybody keeps up on this stuff, but it's important to just drive this home here. The market, Britain crashed today. No matter whether or not you see it on CNN or read it in the Washington Post or anything like that, it's a big deal. It is a huge deal. Okay? Because it is going to mirror what happened in 2008. And if you remember any of that, now what they did do, they injected, what was it, 600 billion? Am I over?
No, I don't think you're over. I think it was 600 billion.
650 billion maybe into it, but they were saying that the assets that are compromised, at least what they're coming clean with so far, and I'm telling you right now, they're gonna find more. This is the tip of the iceberg. Was like 1.5 trillion, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, you're saying that 1.5 trillion in rotten assets that they're
That's what they came out with today.
having to cover up.
Yeah, but this is the same thing that happened with the mortgage-backed securities here in the U.S. It took it, it. Remember when the market just fell off a cliff? That took a while. First it was Lehman, then it was, and it just started cascading. And then they went, "Oh my god, it's what's the insurance company? AG?"
AG,
Yeah, and then
right?
it was AG, and that's when everybody was like, "Oh my god," everybody started throwing up. Literally, Hank was throwing up, right?
Yeah,
Oh my god,
they had to
AG cannot
spend
go down.
160 billion to keep AG in business,
Hmm.
and the reason why they did it was because the assets of Goldman Sachs were at risk, and
Right.
they didn't
Well,
want Goldman going down.
they couldn't have Goldman going down, right? Lehman went. They couldn't have Goldman go. Okay, and I mean it was just
So they made
cascading.
Goldman a bank to protect it.
But that took several weeks for all of that to unfold,
I
and
remember.
then and I think you had the BP Horizon mess going on at the same time. I mean there was quite a few things that were going on at that point in time, and then it took a while for the banks to start uh, calling contracts and calling people, pulling people's home equity lines because they knew the housing market was going to crash. Okay. This stuff cascades and we don't know how bad it's going to be yet, but we know it's going to be bad, right? We also know that Europe is in a world of trouble this winter. We have
Right. So the
committed,
German economy is starting to collapse already.
yeah, and the people are going to
Uh,
be
the English,
hungry and cold, right? The French are the only ones who've been uh, more forthcoming with their position on some of this, but it's not getting any play time here in the U.S. either.
right, and also Macron has lost support and is now facing. He's facing a possible showdown with the right wing there, Le Pen, in particular.
Oh, great! So France
He's
goes
been trying
goes.
for years and years and years and years, and she's is not, but not as much of an open fascist as the lady who was now running the government in
In
Italy.
Italy.
But she's been very close for for many years, and her father was a pretty open fascist, way back there. So yeah, it looks like there could be just a few more nations of Europe that are going fascist in not too long a time from now.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to say, and I'm an internal optimist. I have to be. I mean, I'm really cynical, but I believe in people. Okay, I just know in my heart that Movements need leaders. They need them. Why? Because somebody has to cut through all the crap and lead. And I'm talking about the Bernie movement, us, all of us, the ones that were out there in 2016 that ran an organic grassroots campaign, okay? And then we're in there again in 2020, but sort of like sidelined because the corporate machine came in to run the operation. And, the super volunteers and everybody who killed themselves on 2016, oh, that's okay, we got this, right? Which, okay, fine, just get them elected. Oh, you didn't, all right? You didn't. You failed. Now, we all know how that happened. Um, but let me just boil this all down right now. It is now or never. It is now or never. If Europe collapses, which it looks like it's gonna, and we get into this, God knows how long, never-ending war with Russia, and who knows what kind of garbage they're going to pull other people into this thing with them. We are looking at the kind of economic disaster, potentially, that our grandparents and great-grandparents, depending on how old you are, went through.
In the 1930s and 1940s.
Yeah. Like the kind of situation that most of the population that's alive today didn't experience. Even if you're poor, right? Even if you're poor, people losing everything. Food lines, real food lines, like there's no food to be had. Scraping, survival type stuff.
That was in the 1930s, of course.
Mm-hmm. We could end up very easily in something like that, and then we've got to worry about the fascist rise that's coming, which leads me all the way back to this topic of school boards, but it's the same idea here. I do a lot. I've done a lot with healthcare activism. We've been all over the country. We talk about policy here on this podcast, but we're interconnected with people all over the place, from different parties, who's running, candidates, policy. We're up to our ears in this stuff. And what I am trying to say here is that we don't have even 2 more years to come to the realization that we have to do something now. It is not the time to say, oh, let's make a dirty break and, just go third party this time, because at least we'll establish, no, this is the time where we have got to come together and realize we have people in Congress. They're sitting in a progressive caucus. They have a weak Speaker of the House right now. She screwed up, whether she did it on purpose or not. She has not been put to a microphone for weeks because people don't like what's going on. Our allies don't like what's going on.
Right. And Nancy Pelosi is not an acceptable person to try to lead us out of that, because
Nancy Pelosi.
She's so corrupt. Nobody.
Yeah. Well, we don't have the people's house. It's our house. I don't even hear people talking about that. Like, I try and break through with that to point out that the house
is the people's house.
Is our house. They're supposed to be speaking for us. If we really had a true functional house, we would have never allowed Roe to get overturned and then not codify it the next damned day. because the House would have been up in arms. I mean, this whole thing with all they got to do is publish the ERA and this is over, supposedly, because they ratified it.
They ratified it. Only
Just
the
under Trump
president, only the president has never
signed it, right?
national art. No, he signed it. He didn't have to sign anything. Once it was ratified, he had to tell the National Archives to publish it, and he hasn't told the National Archives to publish it.
And that fixes Roe, does it not?
Uh, okay, I personally don't think it's enough to fix Roe.
Yeah, but it gives us back the rights, the basis to go after and say Roe
Yes, yes,
isn't okay. All right. So
right.
these are the
It
little.
goes. It gives the administration the basis for saying to the Supreme Court, your decision on Roe is preempted by the Equal Rights Amendment,
Mhm.
and we are going to countermand whatever is done at the state level in any state, because the language of the Equal Rights Amendment, okay, is plain, and it guarantees the same rights to women, okay, as men have. And one of those rights is bodily autonomy.
Mhm.
We believe that right is now enshrined in the Constitution.
Okay, so like we even have to have this damn discussion. It makes me furious. Here I am. I'm furious again. Okay, because I live in America and we're talking about whether or not I'm an equal. Like, can you see the steam coming out of my ears? Because damn, it is. It makes me so angry.
I know.
So, the Progressive Caucus, let's get back to this. All of them, not just the squad, all of them, it's their problem. And if you don't like the fact that you are in the Progressive Caucus and this is what the Progressive Caucus stands for, then get out.
And get out. Yeah, you could leave. And
See you.
it's too
There's the
big.
door. Don't let it hit you. And you know what? Get out. This is what we have to do, Joe. All of us. And there are plenty of us out here who have a voice on social media, have a voice on our channels, have a voice in our communities. Okay. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the entire American population, for the most part, is being held hostage by the 500 and some people that sit on Capitol Hill. And who there's 356 million of us?
334 million.
No, 50.
No, 34.
I just did the census.
You may have done the census, but Google the total population of the state
Fuck
right now.
Google. Fuck Google.
No,
Sorry. I'm telling you.
it'll give you the census estimate.
Yeah, okay, whatever. It's an estimate. There's 350 some. Anyhow, the point I'm trying to make, I just did this, Joe. The point I'm trying to make here is we are being led around with a bull ring in our nose, and this garbage is yanking our chain. And it's spilling into your community. Okay? The truth of the matter is that most of us are sane. Most of us give a crap about what is going on in our neighborhood. The theater and the grand productions and all of this stuff that you see on the boob tube and the narratives that are spun and la 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 la. Okay, right? We all know that the vast majority of people are not out to screw people over. It is the minority. What do they have right now? They have the organizations. They're infiltrating them. These are the same people that run around and scream rule of law, and then they'll break it as soon as they turn around and figure out how to backstab you.
Exactly.
And what it's going to take is some brave individuals to stand up and just basically say, no, no, knock it off. We're not going to stand for this. And it needs to have some ingenuity around it. Okay? I'm not saying that it's easy, but what you have to realize is that there are more of us. We are good people. We are good people. Even if it's 20% of the crazies out there and the people who are devoid of conscience, right? Sociopathic, let's just say that, no conscience. They are not the majority. They're not.
Okay, so let's describe what's going on at the local level, at the school board level.
Well, same dark money that has been working for decades to pack the court with these uh, Federalist Society fundamentalist judges. It's the same organizations and dark money groups that are getting school board members elected.
Yes, they're going after the
Exact
school boards now.
same thing.
That's their latest campaign, and this is going on all over the country.
It is.
Okay, and Lisa has particular experience with it because it's really hit hard in her community.
Yes. So, and this is okay. What happened last year? Remember, all of a sudden, this big CRT thing was coming into the discourse.
Yeah,
CRT,
critical race theory. Yeah.
which is what, Joe? Is that a master's level curriculum?
That's theory which has emerged mostly at the graduate school level.
Okay, yeah,
It's
master's.
basically it's a reinterpretation, okay, of the history of blacks in this country.
And it's a theory that is graduate level courses, right?
Right, and it's a theory that is gaining acceptance at that particular level because uh,
It's got
it's
nothing to
telling
do with it's got nothing to do with your elementary and secondary education in your school district. Like zero, nothing, right? But this is what the Republicans are running around screaming. And let's not even just the extremists. Critical race theory, this critical race theory. And I'm a pretty logical, I'm an analyst. I'm a pretty logical person, right? It never dawned on me that this Republican screaming match about don't teach this CRT stuff in our schools was code for something. Never, like I'm mad at myself that it took me so long to figure it out. Well, what happened? We had an election here 2 years ago. Not even. Was it 2 years ago? Year and a half, 18 months ago, right? Um, yeah, I guess it's coming up on 2 years now. Anyway, we had this election and we elected some school board members. And the Democrats ran a write-in campaign, which obviously failed miserably because they only told the super voters in the county, in the district, who to vote for. You got your little letter, but if you weren't a super voter, you didn't get the letter, right? So what happened? They never. All they needed was 10 signatures to get on the ballot as Democrats to be on the ballot, so that Democratic people who go in, Democratic voters who go in to vote for school board, they might not have, looked up every single person in their district. Get down to school board, you either vote Democratic or you vote Republican or you vote the independent if that's what's on there, right? We don't maybe, okay? Oh, and they are not listed by party. That's right. They're not listed by party. But they're at least on the ballot. Their name's on the ballot. Well, the Democrats did this really, they were just so smart. We're just going to do a write in campaign and here, take your letter. This is who you vote for. Well, it didn't work. The Republican extremists got a slate together. They all got on the ballot. They ran no party preference in a school district pretty big school district, and we're fairly wealthy, as wealth goes, because we levy ourselves and our tax basis. Yeah, we've got some money up here as far as it goes. We've got a decent school district budget. But the people that ran for school board were birthed out of what happened in my school district when COVID hit. Our school did a fabulous job of putting together a COVID containment plan, infection containment plan. It included, you know, ventilation, social distancing. They split the kids up. Well, first we were closed down for I think 4 or 5 months totally, and then when they did allow kids back into the building, they split them up. Half the kids were in, they went every other day. Okay, so they were in school and then they were home, and then they were in school and then they were home. So there was plenty of social distancing going on. Our infection rates were almost nil. But what they also did, because this is pre-vaccine for the kids, is they stopped playing contact sports.
Mm.
Now, in southwestern PA, high school football is a big deal. Okay?
Yeah.
And they had just put in a brand new AstroTurf in the high school stadium. And they were chomping at the bit to get those kids on the gridiron playing football. Oh, how dare you say we can't play football? None of the kids were vaccinated. There were no vaccines out for adults. Everybody was terrified. We were still in the first variant that like literally like put you down. Okay. And so what ended up happening was the parents were protesting, and I'm talking about the extremists, were protesting outside of the school board meetings because nobody was allowed in because, again, COVID. And they were screaming so loudly that you could like hear them all through the broadcast of the school board meeting. People would call in, they would gaslight because goddamn it, they wanted those kids on that football field. Why won't you let us play? Blah, 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 blah. And this went on and on to the point where we had to get a assistant athletic director in there who was like some big cheese, who was just basically the cop on the beat to make sure everybody behaved kind of thing. It was horrible. Well, the rest of us that were all sane, I mean, these were people that were like, we don't need a vaccination. These were the anti-maskers at the time, right? It was awful what they were putting the school board through. And then, the kids went back to school. Everything started to sort of get back to normal, but that was it. That was the rift. It was like, we want to play football, damn it. And you liberals in this school, la, 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 la. And all of a sudden, it got attention. And the attention went to, ooh, okay, now if you're a political operative, it is ripe for the picking to put some money into play to run a slate in a environment that is already politically charged, because we politically charged COVID, right? And what ends up happening is you're running a campaign. Hey, you want to run? It's not hard to figure out. They don't even have to like bring somebody in here to run. They just go find the people who were thinking about running, and okay, hey, here's what we'll do. We'll help you with your campaign based on the things that we want you not, we want to promise that you're not going to do X, Y, and Z. Okay. Well, I can promise you there were maybe 2 or 3 things on that list. And number one was no CRT in the school. Now, we just all said CRT is a theory master's level curriculum, postgraduate curriculum. So what's CRT in an elementary school? Huh. Well, I found this out. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a federal mandate. If any operation that's taking federal government money of a certain size, you have to, all your employees have to get trained on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Just like all your employees have to get trained on um, sexual harassment training, bullying, workplace violence, all of that training that you have to take every year. If you've ever worked in a company that size that takes federal funding, it's mandated. You have to have it. So, because of all this strife that we had gone through because of COVID and all of this stuff and all of this division and Trump this and that, they decided to start working on advancing, broadening the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy that they have had in play for probably 25, 30 years, right? Maybe longer than that. It needed updated, okay? Because we had a problem. We knew we had a problem. We also had a situation where we fired the football coach in my school district. And the football coach was fired because somebody came forth with a complaint. They did an investigation. They found out that people were being discriminated against and there was hazing and there was all kinds of stuff and la 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 la, right? This all happened in a period of like 2 years, all of it. It was another reason. Oh, when they fired the football coach, imagine what this rift was looked like then. Okay, it was insanity.
Yeah, very exciting times.
It was awful.
I'm
So
sure.
So they started working on this diversity, equity, and inclusion policy advancement, the entire administration of the district, like, all of the special education teachers, your psychology department was in there. You've got representatives from, well, just the whole kit and caboodle was in there. They were all working on it, including parent. There were some. Well, no, I don't think they were parents. I think everybody in there was administrative, working for the school. Okay, but they had meetings on it. They brought it in front of the school board. They were working on this for months. They put a final proposal, or what was a draft, but your draft final proposal, in front of the newly elected school board after working on this for like 13, 14 months. And that's the new school board tore it apart, said, "Oh, we can guarantee diversity, we can guarantee inclusion," but they had this big discussion on how they couldn't guarantee equity, right? So if you're not following this, it basically comes down to, well, if you're a minority, we'll include you, we'll appreciate that you're diverse, but we're not into this, yeah, you're equal thing, which is so unbelievably gaslighting, right? Like the stuff that makes your brain break. Like, how do you sit here and have this discussion out in the open? And why is it that I can't just come right out and call you a racist? Because that's what it is, right? But if you have any decorum and any respect, which they don't have for the rest of us, okay, you start like, how is this possible? That's the gaslighting piece of it, okay? So they voted, they went, excuse me, they tore this whole policy apart. They had all kinds of changes that needed to be made, trying to derail getting this thing up to a final vote. And the team came back. They accepted every change that was asked. They changed the things and acceptable jargon, acceptable language. They brought it all back. The board accepted every single change. And then when it came down to the final vote, 6 of them on the board voted no, wouldn't give a reason why, wouldn't even look anyone in the eye when they did it. Just voted it down. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh, critical race theory. That's code for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the elementary schools and the high schools. That's what this is. That's what this school district thing is, because they don't want their children being taught any garbage. What garbage? What garbage? That this is how the world works these days, and these are the people in it, and we have a predominantly white homogenous school district, and it's even more important for us to be able to teach this so that our children don't walk out into the world. They're going to fail. They're going to fail at what they want to do. They're not going to thrive if they don't understand that this is how the world is. Okay? What we've got are people who know that the policy that's on the books right now is inadequate. They probably know very well they have to have a policy. They just placated and stalled until they could get this new board elected, and then they voted it down. That was last spring.
Right. And what they didn't like was the equity part of it.
Oh, they don't like any of it, Joe. But that was the thing they chose to say wasn't going to work for them. Right?
Right. But also, it's important for people to understand that the diversity, equity, and inclusion standards are federally mandated. And if
They
they
are.
don't come up with such standards that uh,
No,
uh,
but see, they have an old policy that's good enough, right? Well, it's there. Okay,
yes, it's
it's
there
there.
and it was acceptable to the federal government.
Apparently, yeah. I mean,
And so the
but
federal aid that was coming to the school district was coming because the old policy was acceptable.
well, I mean, that's not the only policy that need to be in play, right? We all know this, but
Yes.
all the I's were dotted, all the T's were crossed. You pass muster, great. Okay, but what has changed? And this is ties into what I was saying earlier. Our society has changed. Our political discourse and our political friction has changed,
Yes.
but not because we're sitting in our houses one day and we just all decided that, you know, I'm blue, you're red, this is what I believe in, this is what you believe in. We got bombarded with this crap, right? This division was not here like it is now. It wasn't. It was like a inciting a riot, literally. Okay, but it got into our neighborhood.
Yeah, it was something grafted onto the neighborhoods by these outside interests who came
Yes.
in with an ideology backed by money.
Hmm.
And the ideology had these racist elements.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. So there's another piece of this puzzle which has to do with the corporations. Okay. It is. It's all intertwined. All of this is intertwined in this authoritarianism, and it gives rise to division. Okay? Because God forbid we all just look at each other as human beings and get off the idea that you have a different melanin in your skin than I do. Because that's really what it comes down to. Unless you have problems with, you know, how racist are you? Do you go down into what you perceive to be someone's culture because you couldn't possibly understand it? It's not yours unless you've been immersed in it. And have you been immersed in all of them? And oh, by the way, they live here in the United States, so it's just going to be what they bring with them. It's not even. It, I mean, this is so ridiculous. Okay, but this is division. Okay, so if we're going to address this, then we have to do this and this, and it's just making everything hard. Okay. So what happens? That all of that I just talked about, that all transpired last year. We get back into school 24th of August. We really don't get going until like the 20, no, like September 1st. And a child wants to ask one of, somebody to the prom, or not the prom, homecoming, and does so with a sign that has a horrible racist inflection. And I don't want to, I don't really think
Yeah.
I don't need to say what it is, but it was just like it was making a slight about not being black, I'm white kind of thing. And because I'm white, I want to ask you to the prom. It was just pathetic. Okay. And somehow or another, there was a picture taken of it and posted to Snapchat and then captured and put on social media, and it goes viral. So now here we are. Remind yourself now that 2 years ago we were a pretty normal school district. Like, the teachers do a great job. They do a fabulous job. They really are dedicated to the kids. They teach them well. I mean, there's always a couple of teachers, always that you're just like, oh, how did you get in here, and why do they tolerate you? But that's how it goes, right? But they do such a good job, and all of a sudden now we can't do what's right for our kids because we've got these people that got elected to the school board who've been paid off to vote certain ways. And maybe they believe in wanting to vote that way, but the point is they wouldn't have made it if they wouldn't have been backed, and those ads wouldn't have been run, and their flyers wouldn't have been put out, and people, you know what I'm saying? And this is the same stuff that's happening to all of us everywhere. So, because of this incident, very interesting, Joe, the dynamic, because this was a white male football player, okay, who did this thing. High school boys. How many, even high school girls, how many of you in high school didn't do something that was really stupid? But we didn't have Snapchat back then. It wouldn't have been captured. He wasn't in school. He wasn't even on school grounds, technically. We all do stupid things in high school, right? It's the responsibility of the school and the parents. So, like, okay, you really, really screwed up. Some things kids do, yeah, it's worth getting expelled from school. Okay. This thing, I don't think it's appropriate to throw children away for making mistakes like this.
Yes.
I don't think it's appropriate to just decide that you're going to throw this kid away and problem solved. No, that's not how you deal with it. Now, think about it from this perspective. The people that are most at risk for having their children thrown away are the very people that don't want diversity, equity, and inclusion discussions happening with these kids. They're eating their own. And this is where it clicks. It took a little bit for the whole school district was paralyzed by this. And when I say the district, I'm talking about everybody. Parents, students, neighbors were talking about it amongst themselves. Everybody was just like, "Oh my God, what do you do with this?" And by the way, it went national. Like, it was on local TV stations, and then it got picked up by their syndication, and it was everywhere. Woke up the next day, Good Morning America and Yahoo News had it. Now we're like, oh, and there's It has not, it has crossed my mind that this whole incident is also kind of a dog whistle. Like if you want to come and live somewhere where we are a solid movement here and we've taken over the school board, come move here and bring your kids to school here. It made my stomach sick because that is not what's going on here. So then I started talking to the mothers, talking to everybody, the kids. I'm even talking to the kids about this because that was the other thing. The kids weren't even talking about this, and the school was so paralyzed, and the school board and the teachers, the whole thing. Everybody was so paralyzed that they went back to the next school board meeting was you wouldn't pass the DEI, and look what happened, right? And then the whole debate from the DEI thing was just a continuation, and they missed addressing the kids. It was a fight between the DEI policy committee and the board again, and it was like, hey, wait a minute, time out. These are our kids. This is my community. This is our reputation out there. This is where we live. There are more of us than there are 5 of you on this school board. Sorry. Now, what are we going to do about it? Right? So, what I did want to do, Joe, was, and I didn't get a chance to do it, as a matter of fact, it slipped my mind today and yesterday, was to look up. There is a school board that was, they were in the same situation, sort of situation that we're in here, and they were able to remove the infiltration of their school board. And I need to find out how to do that. But right now, what I'm doing is making sure that I'm talking to all the parents, talking to the kids. I would like to make a motion that the children, the students in the school, in the high school at least, have a say, or at least we want to know how they feel about whether or not it should be taught in the schools. Because they're the ones that not only get affected by it and hurt by the lack of it, but also get themselves hurt because they don't know any better. They're not getting taught. Shouldn't they have a say in this? Maybe not a vote per se from a standpoint of, you know, their vote counts over anybody else's. But if you were truly interested in the welfare of the kids, not the politics of it, the kids, you would at least want to know what they think, right?
Yes.
Wouldn't you also want to know what the parents think,
Yeah.
right? How about everybody who pays taxes in the school district, whether they got kids in the school or not? Would you want to know about maybe what they think? Maybe not. I don't know. They pay school taxes,
They pay school taxes and they can vote in school board elections too, can't they?
correct? Right?
Yeah.
So maybe the answer here is a couple of different survey monkeys that need to go out. Well, I haven't quite figured out the tactics of how to make sure that that can happen and the legality of it, because there would be plenty of legality around it, I'm sure. But there's got to be someone thinking about these things and talking to people. And that someone has to be you, all of you, right? And I had never gotten involved in this district. I did a lot all over the county. I, go down into the city and I do a lot of work down there and have in the past. I used to be the treasurer of the Democratic Committee for the district, what do you call it? Township. But I don't do that anymore because that was like banging my head against the wall. But I've been involved. And then I stepped away and started doing more um, healthcare activism and working with Joe, and your life moves in different directions. But this was the first time now that there's been a crisis, and the very people who have co-opted the school board now have egg on their face, and the opportunity to address them came up, and I did so. And basically, what I said to them was, I hear a lot of parents talking. I can't imagine, how paralyzing this whole situation has been for you, but there's something that we've all missed. And it is that this has affected each and every one of these kids, each and every one of them. And nobody's talking to the kids. We're all busy banging on each other in this room, but this is about the kids. And I actually had a call from one of the school board members. I didn't, my husband did. Um, and the sentiment was told my husband to thank me, that what I said was the first thing that anybody had actually said to move the whole situation forward, which tells you something, I think. And what that should tell you is it's good to have new blood in the room. It's good to stick your nose in what's actually going on in here. Because oftentimes it's this teeny tiny little microcosm of a group of individuals, and they're making decisions that affect every single one of us. And if they have enough community pushback, I mean, making people on a school board uncomfortable because they're stonewalling you and gaslighting you, that's a requirement. They are not the majority. They don't speak for all of us. And it's really, really important to get involved now. It's the same thing with me realizing that it's time to start calling out that progressive caucus. They are responsible for, getting up to speed here. It's time to play hardball. Things are going to go really bad really quickly. And if they stay silent, we've got no chance. But there's a chink in that armor right now. And they need to be incredibly shrewd. I mean, that's like 5D chess, right? I mean, it's an analogy, but that's what needs to happen right now. We all need to understand these politicians look bad, really bad. Why? Because they are. They're weak right now. What is it? Kick a stock. How do you say that word, Joe?
I'm sorry, what word?
The worst of the worst running the government. What's the word?
Oh, kakistocracy.
Kakistocracy. The worst of the worst.
The word. Right. It means government by the worst of the worst.
Yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah, that is where we are. It's because the worst of the worst are active, and the worst of the worst are
Are counting
getting.
on you not being involved.
They're also getting the dark money from the billionaires.
Yeah, yeah. Through the
It's the
agenda.
effect of the billionaires again. If you do Google, if you Google school boards and dark money,
Mm-hmm.
there's a page of results that comes up.
Ooh.
Not only that, excuse me, I'm about to sneeze, so I have to find my handkerchief. But uh, first of all, you get 308,000 results. So thank you, honey. 308,000 results. The first one is from CT Insider. I'm not sure what the CT stands for in this case, but there's an opinion piece there called Dark Money Behind School Board Conflicts. And the opinion piece was dated October 4th, 2021.
Mm.
and related to some woman carrying a sign protesting the teaching of critical race theory
Yeah.
at the Central Middle School.
Hmm.
There was a recent article in Truth out also entitled Dark Money School Groups Are Trying to Buy the Midterm Elections. This is happening actually right now in Florida. There's a lot of this kind of stuff going on in Florida because of DeSantis. You know, he's attracting all kinds of strange stuff. Uh,
Mm. Including title surge.
right. So this stuff is flourishing in Florida. Okay, in Virginia, there's an article dated October 18th, 2021. It was from Popular Info, which is a newsletter put out by a guy by the name of Judd Legum, who is well known in progressive circles. He's a lawyer, okay, and very progressive. Uh, his comments are usually great on various things, but he's into the school board stuff as well. And he's talking about a conflict that occurred in Northern Virginia in Fairfax County, which is the one county over from me.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm in Loudoun County, so we are west of Fairfax County. Until recently, Fairfax County was considered to have one of the very best school systems in the country. And the county I'm in has a similar reputation right now.
Hmm.
But anyway, the title of this article is How Virginia School Boards Are Being Weaponized to Help. Let's see what they're helping. How Virginia school boards are being weaponized to help elect a GOP governor. So the
Mm.
school boards were being used to enhance the campaign of Governor Youngkin,
Ugh.
who until recently I called Governor Trumpkin. But anyway, uh, he's not really a Trumpist. Uh, he comes out of the Bush interest groups.
Mm. But it's not. I think what we. I want. Well, they're in your schools now, talking their agenda, their talking points, causing, disrupting, gaslighting. Right. Then they get the newspaper involved, and it's a dog whistle.
Yes,
Okay.
it's a dog whistle, and
And
we
it's
ought to know.
division.
Okay, this stuff is being supported by places like the Charles Koch Institute.
Hmm. The
That's
Federalist Society, and goes on and on and on.
right. But very prominent right wing funding sources
Hmm.
are taking this money down to the school board level and are electing their people to school boards. And of course, they're trying to influence the educational agendas at the school board level so they can socialize the kids to right wing attitudes and opinions.
Well, you know what though? I think it's more that they want to take it into the community and get the parents division. They want to get the community divided,
They
right?
do that
They
too.
want to whip the frenzy because
Sure.
God forbid we come together on something. If it can't be coming together on your kids, seriously? Like you might be my arch enemy, but don't you give a shit about your kid? Look at the situation that this child ended up in. I mean, they were trying to throw him away. Now, the Board of Education came out and said, it's probably a really bad idea. This child has the right to free speech. And the other side of it is they really don't want this going to court because all this crazy is going to come out. And nobody's going to want to be, I mean, anybody would hear about what went on here would be running for the hills or wanting to move here because, oh, yeah, I want to go move there. They won't teach my kid any of that CRT junk. What's CRT? Do you even know? This is just frenzied division, and it's working. And these people are a minority until they get everybody whipped up talking about something that they don't even understand what they're talking about. It's really what it comes down to. And I find it interesting as well that I have like 3 C-suite level individuals on this board. They're required to have diversity and equity and inclusion in their entities. Their entities are huge. So, there's other tactics around how to play this too. Because I would really wonder if the board of their entities would be really excited about the fact that they're voting down diversity, equity, and inclusion in my school district as a school board member. I might have to write to those boards because surely this C-suite employee, would they harbor the same attitudes in an entity that has to teach diversity, equity, and inclusion in their workplace? This is the kind of stuff that we all need to do. We need to come together and realize that you can fight back. You have to fight back. If we don't fight back, we're going to be in a really bad place. We're going to be in a very difficult place anyway. But we can do something about this. This is the piece of the puzzle about the learning curve. We're not powerless to this. You just have to figure out where to plug in. And the best place to plug in right now is in your backyard. It really is. Because we have to do it everywhere. And it used to be that, we're going to have a presidential campaign going on again, but you're also going to have to get on the ground anyway. You're going to get on the ground to socialize whatever those issues that are dearest to you. Healthcare has always been one of mine. Housing. Now, I haven't gotten involved in housing other than to be involved in the housing authorities here, but housing is a big problem everywhere now. Schools. The public schools, inner city public schools, they're always getting the shaft. Always, always, always. Why? Because they usually want to, sell off the property. If you shut the school down, people have to move because they have to get their kids to a different district where they got to go to school. And then what do? They sell all the property off cheap, and then it gets all regentrified and, perfect. That's how they do it. They shut your schools down. And it happens everywhere. And I mean everywhere. You just have to really, you see it once, you follow that trend of how that works one time, and then you realize it's everywhere. They screw with our kids to manipulate us, to keep us
Right.
divided, keep
And
us poor.
they're deliberately ruining the neighborhoods so they can buy the houses cheaply.
And also to force out,
Rent.
voters into a certain place so that they can gerrymander you. We are all so freaking manipulated right now. So now again, I'm back to these things like progressives play hardball. Congress play hardball. You want to get that bill passed, and Nancy's pulling crap. Somebody make a motion to vacate the chair because she
Vacate
knows
the
you're playing
chair.
hardball.
Vacate the chair. Which,
She's a
by
mess
the
anyway.
way, which by the way has to go through the Progressive Caucus anyway, because such a motion will not get a floor vote unless it comes out of a party caucus. And the
Exactly.
chairperson of the official party caucus we're talking about is Pramila Jayapal. And it's
Mm-hmm.
the Congressional Progressive Caucus that's the official party caucus. How do
Yeah.
we know it's an official party caucus?
It has a budget.
It has a budget. It gets money from the Congress specifically for its operations.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
one of the few party caucuses that actually have a budget.
Hmm.
because most of them start out as informal caucuses. And it probably has close to the biggest budget because it has roughly 100 members. So it's a pretty big party caucus.
It is, but there's probably a good 40 of them that could go bye bye.
Yes, because they're not really progressives.
Oh, they're not progressives at all. They're probably dinos and just in there to spy on everybody until make sure that things don't really move out of there.
Right, exactly.
Mm,
And Hakeem Jeffries is a member of the
yeah.
Congressional Progressive Caucus.
Where's that spoon? I need a good gag.
Okay. Okay. So, thank you, Lisa. This is, I think, really a big issue, okay, a subterranean issue, okay, a very disturbing issue. Uh, shall we begin to go through the comments?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. We've got a lot of short comments tonight. Steve Wolfbrand's here. He says, "Where are the people?" Uh, a lot of people say hello. There's a lot of hellos.
Hi,
Sandy says,
everybody.
"Hello, Kelly, Brandy, Arif, Dolores, Steve, Bonnie, John, Lisa." Sandy says, "It's time for Nancy to step down." Sandy says, "I sent you the article about Nancy, Joe." Yeah, that was the one uh, I've seen during the last few days, Sandy. Thank you for sending it. And Jeff says, "Hi, Sandy." James Doe says, "Thanks, America, for funding fascism and overthrowing the more left leaning governments."
Yeah.
Yep, that's what has been going on. Jeff Denton says the U.S. empire put sanctions on Germany almost 2 solid years ago over the pipeline that just mysteriously blew up. Well, actually, both pipelines blew up, both
Yeah, they blew up Nord Stream 1 and 2
and two. Yes,
on the same day that they happened to be in the water.
on the same day. It isn't clear who did it as yet, but the available evidence seems to point to the United States. It's not clear who in the United States did it. Theories have been advanced that we no longer have a unitary government here in the United States, and that
Unitary meaning.
uh, okay, unitary meaning we have a government that is headed by the president of the United States, and things don't get done without the approval of the president of the
Yeah.
United States.
Yeah. Okay.
In other words,
Hmm.
the theory is that a certain portion of the deep state actually did this, and that they may not have done it with the approval of the president.
What? Do you believe that?
I don't know. I don't know.
He telegraphed it weeks ago, months ago.
Right, but there are people who didn't think that he was serious about it.
Oh, come on, Joe. He said it. He said as much.
Okay, I know he said as much, and the person who didn't think that he was serious about it is a person who knew he said as much and
Who?
called attention to it,
Who?
in terms of his analysis. Oh, it was Alexander today.
Oh, no. Alexander's wrong.
Perhaps,
I mean, you can think he's right, but he's dead wrong.
perhaps.
Alexander says things that everybody says things depending on how large their audience is and blah, 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 blah. I don't tend to mince words. So I probably won't be saying things like this for very long because somebody will have a conniption fit.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said, so I probably won't be saying things like this for very long because somebody will have a conniption fit. But he came right out and said it. And then he was
No,
pressed
I know.
on it.
Aware of the quote and aware of the exchange. And it certainly can be interpreted uh, in such a way that this looks like it might be a decision, okay, of Biden's. But Alexander, uh, uh, uh,
Oh, you mean you're asking, you're wondering if it was an organic thought?
what he is wondering about, he thinks there are better indicators that suggest that it might have come from the administration. I guess because of the context of Biden's remarks and other things he's made, Alexander did not consider his making these remarks as serious, okay, an indication as some other things that Biden had done. Okay, but
Oh, okay, okay, I'll buy that. I'll buy that.
he still thinks that the evidence is not conclusive, that this was a product of a decision that went up to the presidential level and got the approval, okay, of the president. He still thinks there's a possibility that there was a rogue group, okay, that did this, which would be very interesting if true. I don't know if it's true, and to be fair, Alexander didn't know if it was true either, but he thought there were indications of this. But Alexander was careful about how he put things. He was very careful to say,
It's a theory.
uh,
I don't know if I buy it, but it's a theory.
he was very careful to say that this was a theory, that there was no conclusive evidence for it
Well,
yet.
there's no conclusive evidence for anything. None. We don't
Right,
know.
but he was talking in common sense terms. In other words, there is evidence. Okay, if there was evidence, uh, there is a certain kind of evidence that he would consider conclusive enough to say we did it. But okay, in this case, he doesn't think there is conclusive enough evidence to say that we did it. He went
Well,
through
no, there's not, because there
he
isn't
went
any.
through very a very lengthy analysis of this, starting with the powers who could possibly be in back of it.
Well,
And one,
there are different places that have every motivation to see it go bye-bye, you know? I mean, truthfully,
right?
uh,
Um, uh,
Poland and Norway opened up the other one called the Baltic
yes,
Pipeline.
the Baltic pipeline,
Mhm.
which is running from Norway to Poland.
Yeah, open just so happened to open up on the same, day after it got blown up.
Yeah, what a coincidence, right?
Well, yeah, it's a
And
big
it
coincidence.
originally wasn't supposed to be available till January,
Mhm.
and now suddenly it's available on the last day of September.
And then the Polish, leader came out and said, "Thank you, USA."
Well, that was another thing. That was the Polish leader, the husband, Ivan Applebaum,
Um,
who's a war hawk from way, way back, especially when it comes to the Russians. And he came out with a Twitter remark, thanking the United States for doing this. Okay, Alex went through a fairly careful analysis. Alexander did, I should say, of
It's all just, this is all, it's too in your face.
yeah, right. So Sandy Zegg says power tripping. Jeff Denton says, see, people can't even agree on how many people live in the country. And remember, half the country isn't registered to vote, and nearly half of registered voters identify, okay, as independent. And James Doe says dark money equals government money. Well,
No,
actually, dark money,
no. Well, it goes to the government to get elected. It goes through elections, but dark money is organized money to influence government.
yes, right. And it's private sector money that's going into campaigns. And the sense in which it's dark is
You don't know
we
who's
don't
giving it.
know who the donors are.
Hmm.
And they're able to keep secret. The organizations that get the money are able to keep secret the identity of the donors.
Ooh.
James Doe says countries invaded, pipelines bombed. Kelly M says, Sandy, I'm listening, but in the middle of making salsa verde. Salsa verde. Salsa verde for rotisserie chicken. Sandy says, yum. James Doe says, food chat, COVID 19 recap of America's failures. Just look at the total deaths, says it all. Yeah, I know. I've been watching that from the beginning. James Doe says, I remember when Chernobyl blew up, they told us not to play in the sandbox for 3 months. James Doe says, I'm still not vaccinated. Uh, we're going for our latest booster on Monday, October 3rd. Sandy said, and for flu vaccine too. Sandy Degg says, we had that training where I worked. You have to do it every year.
Mhm.
James Doe says, I'll stick with the BS America does abroad, but it sounds like much of the same BS on different levels. James Doe says, critical America theory.
Yeah.
And then tell us how the world works, please. And then he says, but once again, you're only 4% of the world. Brandy says, I pretty much feel like we have no one in power right now in either party that are willing to fight for us.
Mm.
CC Swift, hello CC, says school boards equal indoctrination of, quote, Hitler Youth 2.0 just flashed by. I had to put in my 2 cents. Cosat says, I'll take a wild guess. Yes.
How does wait a minute? How is the school board indoctrination? The school board doles out contracts and money. They vote on uh, policy that affects the district, but they are not like the school board doesn't go into the schools. They're not allowed.
Robert Copeland says, I am currently working on defeating an anti homeless ballot measure that could bankrupt the city of Sacramento, and the website is nuno.net. Hope you
I'm
spelled it
currently
right,
working on it.
Robert. You spelled it Noono. Nuno.net as opposed to nono.net. So which is it? Sandy Degg says, hi, Steve, and Robert. And Ghost Start, also known as Steve, with 2 E's, says, hey, Sandy Degg, everyone knows. Sandy leaves an icon I can't interpret through this interface. Ghost Start says, what difference at this point does it make? Hashtag Hillary, hilarious with the emphasis on Hillary. Ghost Start says, U.S. would outlaw speeches while simultaneously celebrating Free Speech Day. Yes, I noticed that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have become a parody of ourselves.
Yes, we've become a parody of a democratic nation, I'm afraid. Go start. Okay, I guess.
I wouldn't have said a democratic nation. We're kind of a parody. It's like the Inglorious Bastards.
Yes.
Oh no.
Yes, we are far from a democratic nation. So, folks, we're done with the comments. Have you any concluding remarks, Lisa?
No, I really, I can't. I know how hard it is to figure out how to engage in your community. I know that it takes a while to figure out where to plug in, but we've got to plug in. We've got to plug in somewhere. If you can't do it in your community, then you know there's lots of places and lots of ways to plug in. But we have got to work on coming together around the issues, around the policies that we know we have to get past, whatever that is, right? The 10 demands, if you know who Awkward is, and go after the angle of, you know, diversifying the portfolio that is the militarization of the police departments that we have right now. Okay, plug in that way. If it's climate, plug in that way. Start looking at what's going on around you. What is it around you that you really value that you need to change? And there's always some place where you can go and sit down and meet with people that are working on that same thing. And if you don't like the first thing you plug into, just keep looking. But now is the time. We've got to make a stink. We've got to make our voices heard. We have to talk to people. And we don't have to do it in a political, like, you're right and I'm left. To me, talking about how to take care of the children that are right in front of your face, instead of fighting with one another, 40 of you in this room, you've got 2,300 kids in the high school, and how many more out in the district? Do you hear yourselves? Stop it. It's like common sense, trying to speak to common sense and making people realize that this fringe element out here, it is just that. But we've got to plug in with one another. We've got to come back together and talk to people as humans that live in their houses and want their kids to do well and eat dinner and, go grocery shopping and go get their kids haircuts and have to go get shoes because their kid grew out of their sneakers again. What's going on here? And walk their dog. We've got to get back into the mindset that our neighbors are not our enemies. And if you've got people that are not the greatest, you know as well as I do, they're the minority. They are the minority. That's what we have got to grab onto right now, and we've got to find each other around what needs to work for all of us.
Yes. Yes, we absolutely do. We have to build this movement. It's not really a single movement. It's a movement, okay, of movements where people come together around a number, okay, of issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Where
it's
you don't even know.
anti-corruption, right? I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. It's just like they're corrupt. It's corruption. And the fact that we don't have a house that's the people's house. I got two generations. My kids, I got a millennial and I got a Z. I think that's how it goes. Yeah, because I had two marriages and they're 14 years apart. Anyway, my kids, they don't even realize how this is supposed to work. They've never seen it.
Yeah, they've never seen it work the way it was supposed to work.
And there's a lot of people who've never seen it work the way it's supposed to work. Because it hasn't worked for a really long time.
Yes. I don't think it's worked. God. From my point of view, I don't think it's worked since the Vietnam War. Some people
Yeah, I kind
disagree
of think that too.
and say that it worked during the Reagan administration. But I don't know. Some unexpected things happened in the Reagan administration that you wouldn't think would have happened, like the savings and loan scandal
Yeah.
and the Reagan
And when
administration.
they threw away all the air traffic controllers that went on strike.
Right, but in the savings and loan scandal, the Reagan administration actually put about 1,000 people in jail,
Yeah,
which
they did.
you would never have thought would have happened under the Reagan administration. Well, it didn't happen under the Reagan administration, it happened under the Bush administration. The investigation started in the Reagan administration, but it was the Bush 41 administration that put 41 criminals from the banks
In
behind
jail.
bars.
In jail, yes, they did.
And that's the last time we've had an honest thing like that actually happen.
But we also had the arms treaty signed under Reagan, right?
Yes.
And wall came down in Germany. I mean, there was some. Listen, Reagan, ugh, he threw me out of school and into default, right? So my soul, right? He's my enemy. But his administration did do some decent things. They just
Yes.
also did some really shitty things.
Yes. The Reagan Bush, in other words, consider the 12 years, okay, as a collective.
Yeah.
Uh, there were some good things that were done under the Bush administration, but there was also this thing with the Russians, promising them that certain things were never going to happen. And then during the 1990s, they started happening. Now, to give full credit here, they didn't start happening under the Bush 41 administration. The real buildup of NATO in Eastern Europe started happening under Clinton
Mm-hmm.
and then continued under Bush 43,
Yeah, 43.
okay, and under Obama.
And then Obama, yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And then, of course, under Trump. And now we're under Biden. They're still trying to get, Ukraine into NATO. Anyway,
Well,
so I guess that's all for tonight, folks. You
yeah,
know,
everybody stay safe because I'm worried about what the next 3 or 4 months is going to bring as far as what this economy is going to look like. And winter's coming, it's never easier. So, all the
that's
more reason to plug in with your neighbors.
right. And what our politics is going to look like, too,
Hmm.
because we're entering very, very dangerous times there. And we don't know how things are going to work out because right now the resistance is very ineffective. Uh, Tomorrow night, we have Dump the Incumbents. And we'll be talking about actually primarily Texas and how the campaigns of some very good progressives are doing in Texas at this point. There's a chance to get another set of people in office who look extremely promising and to expand the squad somewhat. Uh, and so we're going to look at that and see how those campaigns, okay, are going tomorrow. We are contemplating as well a change in the name of Dump the Incumbents.
Mm.
Uh, we may be changing the name to Dump the Donors, okay, because the truth is that even though we do that in part by dumping the incumbents, we also do it in part uh, by dumping the challengers who are coming to a race supported by extremely big money. Uh, and of course, when we realize that the whole idea of dumping incumbents is actually to get rid of the donors who are coming into these races with the toxic money, it becomes clear that it's probably more logical uh, to entitle the program Dump the Donors. Okay.
Mm.
Though the way we use that, the way we do that is by going through the candidates who are taking the money from the big donors. In other words, making it poisonous for them to take the big money from the big donors.
How about just dump the corruption?
Okay, let's talk about dump the corruption versus dump the donors. We'll probably have a chance to do that tomorrow, I think. Okay, I think that's worth a discussion.
Yeah, I mean, dump the donors doesn't necessarily key into the leadership candidates that we already know are taking the money, right? And so I don't give a damn where the money's coming from. All I know is that you as a politician are corrupt at this point. I don't have to go down into the weeds. Just goodbye, right? You're corrupt. How are you corrupt? You take the damn money that got you elected. You are beholden on certain issues. You have to vote this way or that way. You can't even vote your conscience. You owe them.
Okay, but we have to make the connection that these people are corrupt and that candidates can also be corrupt, okay, if they're taking the big money. And that the way to get the toxic money out of politics and the toxic donors out of politics, okay, is to get rid of the people who are taking the money and make that a
Mhm.
litmus test. If they're taking the big money, then you vote for somebody else.
Right, but you can't like I know you're taking big money, but I'm not sure what you're doing. Then what, right? I mean,
No simple rules are perfect.
right,
So you
exactly.
start with the simple rules and you be aware of the exceptions. And then it's going to be up to the individuals themselves who are going to the polls to see whether the exceptions apply in a particular case or do not apply in a particular case.
Yep, because I'm not going to vote for Doug Mastriano,
Me neither. Well, I
right?
won't. I'm not in Pennsylvania anyway, but I wouldn't vote for Doug Mastriano. Okay, and
Yeah, he's like a cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, ridiculous, January sixer.
yeah, well, he's already said, of course, that uh, he suggests, that a woman who has an abortion is a murderer.
Oh
And,
yeah, he's
okay,
like,
when he was asked, would you arrest such a woman for murder? He said yes.
yeah, he's going to put women in prison for having miscarriages, for God's sake.
Yes. So he is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And there's no way under any conditions that he should be voted for.
He's a woman hater and a goddamn fascist.
Yes. And he's not the only one running for office. By the way, something just happened, okay, in Ohio, where J.D. Vance was exposed for something that
Yeah, I
he
saw
did.
that today.
I'm not sure of the details of that, but they're supposed to be serious enough that most probably Tim Ryan is now going to take that race.
Amen.
And while I don't hold the breath for Tim Ryan, he is
Better
far,
than Van.
far better than J.D. Vance.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I mean, you won't have to vote in your own best interest. That is where we are. However, the other reason why we do the dumping and comments, Joe, is because the people that are out online, the more they know, because the communities online, they have to do with campaigning, right?
they do.
And the messaging that gets out. That's
Yes,
the other reason why we do this, because it's not just about people, and how you're going to vote and what's good and what's bad and what our message is. It's like, okay, how are we going to be influencers as to what's going to work here? Because I'll tell you something, the Bernie campaign that we ran in 2016 with a bunch of volunteers did a hell of a lot better job in social media, in reaching the people who couldn't get out to rallies. We did a really good job. In a lot of cases, we did a better job in engaging the base than they did in 2020. We used to have the ticker going. All the donations that he got, you could see it every day. You could see it going. We would put out when we were doing primaries. You could see the results coming in. We put that out live. We did some things that was compelling like the kind of stuff that you want to see with politics that you don't see anywhere. We had the tech that did that. We still have that,
Yes.
right? We just have to plug back in. No more white noise boxes, no more horse crap. We plug in for real. And we do this. Because I'll tell you, if we don't do this, I am very fearful that this world is going to go fascist really fast. And I'm very worried about us going down into a world depression if we don't figure this stuff out quick. And people who say, oh, well, we just have to wait until, no, there's no waiting.
No waiting.
Anybody
There's no
telling that it's
time.
time to wait, even
There's
if it's
no time.
Ed Mackey, is that his name, Mackey? Ed Mackey or Markey? How do you say it?
I'm Ed Markey.
Markey, yeah. It's like, well, we're going to do this. We're going to get this legislation passed so they can't trade stocks. We just have to get through November. Yeah, no, you don't. No, you don't. You have to get through November.
But you
But I
have to
don't want
pass
to
it
hear
now. But you have to pass
about
it
how
now because you know what? Once you get through November, you got lots and lots of other things to do.
right,
You got to get this through right now. And you
and
know
then we
another thing.
table everything.
And you know another thing you should do before November is codify Roe
Mm-hmm.
v.
Yeah,
Wade
and publish the damn
before,
ERA.
before November. And you know what? If you do those things before November, you
People are
will
going to vote for
sweep
you.
in November. People will vote for you.
Right.
If you keep on just trying not to do this so you can use it for fundraising,
Or you're too afraid to do anything right now because we've got to win in November and you're paralyzed. You're useless.
yes, you have to do these things so that you can win in November, so you can blow the Republicans out.
Ed Mackey went on the ethics people, the crew, citizens, something, something, whatever. Anyhow, it's the ethics group right out on Twitter, and they interviewed Mackey about this
Ed Markey.
Markey. Why do I don't know why. Names don't stick with me. I don't know why. Faces do. I can't get the names to stick. Anyhow, Markey interview. And he's, going on and on about, well, we're going to get this passed. I mean, look at how much momentum we've got. La 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 la. Are
We
you
don't want
kidding
to
me?
hear that. We want to hear we'll get this done before the election.
I want to hear him say, come on, get your people together, talk about this, pick up the phones, get on social media. You know, do
Get
you know? Why? Why don't they do it? Oh, because we just have to play it safe because we don't want to lose the House and we don't want to lose, we don't want to lose the Senate. The elections are coming up and we're
You
going to play
are
nice.
okay. If you've checked the pollsters lately, you are losing the House. If things go along as they have been doing, you will lose the House. If you don't want to lose the House, you have to do these vital things right now. You have to be heroes right now.
Yeah, they need to do
You
something
want to get
big.
people out.
They need to do something big, really big. And even if it doesn't succeed, you've got to try now because people need to know you're fighting for them. For God's sake, they're going to cut, what did they say? They're going to cut Social Security? Is that what I heard? They're cutting Social Security benefits?
Well, of course, the proposal is on the table to raise the Social Security benefits by $200 a month for everybody. That comes to $2,400 a year per individual. So if there's a couple involved, it's a rise of $4,800 a year. On top of that, what is on the table right now is a rise in Social Security benefits of 10.5%. The cost of living raise is supposed to be 10.5% this year, which also amounts to a substantial raise.
Well, what were they cutting? They're cutting something, and it's
Well, the Republicans are for cutting something. They're always for cutting
No,
social.
no, no. There is actually like something that already passed. What the heck was it? Oh, it doesn't matter because it's just it doesn't matter. I'm getting into the weeds here. My point being is they need to throw their base some red meat once in a while, like every other caucus does. People call
Yeah,
them
like
sellouts because they don't see them fighting. They always see them come out and giving people A's for like screwing up the legislation that you busted your ass to send to the Senate.
yep.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Like what? What? They got you at gunpoint? Like what's going on?
Yeah, what's going on? They still haven't passed $15 an hour.
They haven't
Okay.
published the ERA. I
And
mean,
the
what?
living wage during the time that we first started fighting for $15 an hour, the living wage has now gone up to $30 an hour. And you guys are still working on 15. I mean, what good are you?
They're not. They're not. I think Joe. I mean, I'm going to give them a benefit of the doubt here. Okay, there was a big learning curve that they went through. There is. I'm talking about the squad.
Yes, I know. I know what you're talking about. Perhaps they didn't know how to do it because they're fairly young, and
I
they've
don't think they
never
did.
okay, and they've never bargained in the area of buying and selling houses. Uh, that's very good training. Doing that is very good training for learning to say no. That's what they've not been able to do.
Yeah, I don't think that it's just them being able to say no. I think that the coercion and the intimidation that these individuals have been
If
under.
they said no to the American Rescue Plan, they would have gotten the $15 an hour in it if they said no. They had enough votes to defeat it.
Oh yeah, they weren't willing to put down any piece of legislation.
Yeah, if
Not
they
ever.
if they had put down the American Rescue Plan, they would have brought it back up, and they would have had the $15 an hour in it because Biden needed that.
Hmm.
Everybody in America needed the cash coming
Hmm.
out of that particular bill. And it was the fact that that was in the bill that I think caused them to be weak about it. They thought there were so many good things in that bill that they weren't going to insist on the $15 an hour. But God damn it, that $15 an hour has been hanging in the air for so long. When that happens, there comes a time when there's no other priority except to get that $15 an hour. I mean, they've been saying no to that for 10 years. It's enough.
Right. So 15's not enough.
Yeah, 15 is not enough. But what I'm saying is 10 years of fighting for it, okay, is enough. At this point, you just got to go and get it and make that the priority. Well, not over everything. The most important priority is abortion rights for women because those have been hanging out there even longer than that 50 years.
50 fucking years.
50 years. Anyway, folks, it's time to say goodnight. So thank you, Lisa. This
Thank
was
you, Joe. Thank you. Oh, hey, Robert. Robert and Sandy and Ghost Art and Dolores. Who am I missing here? Jeffrey,
Jeff.
Randy.
Yeah,
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
and thank you for staying while we talk.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, good night. We'll see you for Dumpty Incumbents.
Night, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, yes, October 8th, Arms Around Assange. Worldwide.
Yep.
Got to do that too.
Oh, I
Good
think
night.
October 8th, there's Also supposed to be a march for abortion rights on the same day.
Oh, seriously?
I think so. Yeah.
Abortion rights?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I thought I saw something today or yesterday that there's a march for abortion rights on March 8th.
Okay. Is that kind of like
I'm
marching
sorry, not
for?
on March 8th. I mean October 8th. Okay, I misspoke. I think it's on October 8th.
Well, is it a codification of Roe? What is it?
I think it's a codification of road that they're calling for. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Oh, by the way, all I have to say about this is if I'm right, and that is going to happen on October 8th, it's about damn time that that happened. Way past damn time.
Do you know who's organizing that?
Uh, no, I don't know who's organizing it.
I'm surprised I haven't seen it. Anyway, I'll go look. And everybody say a prayer for everybody in Florida.
Good night.
Good night.